Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alessia, and if you're new around here, I make videos related to writing, true crime, and lifestyle. And I am so excited for today's video because today is my first true crime video here on my channel. And if you know me in real life, then you know I love true crime. I watch videos and documentaries on true crime. I listen to podcasts and read books. I am a huge true crime junkie, and I am so excited to incorporate one of my passions here on my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be talking about the case of Shanti Devi. Now, the case of Shanti Devi technically isn't a true crime case. It is instead a story about reincarnation. But of course, since it is about reincarnation, it is still up for speculation and debate, so I thought it would be really fun to make Shanti Devi's case my first video. So if you're interested, then please keep watching. So before I start talking about Shanti Devi's case, I'm going to explain what reincarnation is, just for those of you who haven't heard of it before. So reincarnation is the concept that after you die, you actually go on to live another life and another life after that. So your existence is pretty much this huge circle and you just continue living forever. And your past life can be completely different than your current life. For example, in your past life, you could have been a boy, you could have been a girl, or you could have lived in a completely different continent than you do now. And most people do not remember their past lives except for children. So there have been hundreds of cases of children who have remembered their past lives. And this is probably because children are so innocent and pure, and they are the closest in age to their past life because they are the closest to birth. Now, usually past life memories fade as a child grows up and grows into their current life, but sometimes the memories remain, and that is exactly what happened with Shanti Devi. So Shanti Devi was born in New Delhi in India in 1926. And as a toddler, Shanti spoke very little, and her parents actually began to worry that she was mute. But much to their relief, at age 4, Shanti began talking. But oddly, she began talking in really long, complex sentences, and she began using vocabulary that was way beyond someone of her age. And her parents thought this was weird, but they were so happy that she was talking that they kind of just brushed it off and let it go. But eventually, Shanti Devi started talking about something very odd that definitely is not normal to a regular 4-year-old. Shanti began claiming that her parents weren't actually her parents, and New Delhi was not her home. In fact, her name wasn't even Shanti Devi. She claimed that she had a husband and a son living in the city of Mathura, which is about 3 hours away from New Delhi. And I can't imagine a 4-year-old going up to me and telling me all of this information. It would blow me away. When I was 4, I was barely talking and I was playing with dolls, and I had no idea about the adult world or anything beyond what I knew and what was in front of me. Now, this was India, so the concept of reincarnation and past lives wasn't a foreign concept to Shanti's parents. However, her parents kind of brushed it off and just assumed that it was a phase that Shanti would grow out of and just forget about. But unfortunately, that did not happen. The one thing that Shanti's parents couldn't get over was how Shanti knew about the city of Mathura. So the city of Mathura was 3 hours away from New Delhi, and no one in the family knew anyone who lived there, and no one in the family even spoke about the city before. So it was really strange that Shanti even knew about it. But even stranger was the fact that Shanti was calling the city by its nickname of Mathura. So the city's real name is actually called Mathura, and the only people who call it Mathura are the city's residents. So her parents had no idea where Shanti heard this nickname. However, Shanti's past life memories went way beyond just mentioning the city of Mathura. She told her mother how she used to live in a yellow house in the city and how she used to take baths in a well on the property. She even mentioned that she used to go to a local temple every single day to pray to the local goddess named Krishna. And even stranger is when Shanti began talking about her husband, and she was very specific about this. She said that her husband was a wealthy shopkeeper and even mentioned that he had a large birthmark on his left cheek and wore these distinctive reading glasses. Now, Shanti's mother was obviously floored. She had no idea where Shanti was getting this information from, and frankly, she was downright scared. And Shanti's parents' fear only intensified as Shanti even kept up habits from her past life. She refused to eat meat because no one in the city of Mathura ate meat, and she only ate sweets that were from the city of Mathura. So sweets that were native to the town of Delhi, she did not like. She even knew the difference between real silk and fake silk because her husband was in the cloth trade. As time went on, Shanti revealed extremely specific information to her parents. She revealed that her name was actually Shanti Devi, and she had died only 10 days after giving birth to a son and undergoing multiple surgeries. Now, you have to remember, at this point in time, Shanti is only 4 years old, and she is talking about extremely complex concepts such as birth and death and surgeries. When I was 4 years old, I was not thinking about any of that. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't learn about death until elementary school, about like grade 7 or 6. That's when I fully understood the idea of death. So like I said, her parents actually were very scared, and they brought Shanti to a local doctor who found nothing wrong with her. The only thing the doctor said was how strange it was that Shanti knew so much about medical surgeries. Now, after this, Shanti's parents reached the only logical conclusion they could think of, that their daughter Shanti really was a reincarnation of a woman named Shanti Devi in her past life. I'm not sure what it's like today in India, but back then it was actually a bad omen to remember your past life. And because of this, Shanti's parents wanted to keep this on the down low, and they did not want to talk about it. But Shanti wanted to talk about her past life to pretty much anyone who would listen. At age 7, Shanti started school, and she would talk about her past life as Shanti to all of her classmates and to all of her teachers. And her reaction and emotions about all of this were so sincere that her teachers actually wanted to investigate and wanted to see if what Shanti was saying had any truth behind it. With her parents' permission, Shanti's teachers got together and asked Shanti to tell them the name and address of her husband living in Mathura. Now, at this time, it was seen as a social impropriety for Hindu wives to speak the name of their husbands in public. So this was a big deal for Shanti. But eventually she gives up and tells her teachers the name and address of her husband. Her husband's name is Kedar Nath, and he is still alive and well, living in the city of Mathura. So her teachers are obviously astounded to find out that Kedar Nath is actually a real person and still lives in Mathura. So they actually decide to write to him to tell him about Shanti and to see if any of this is true. And to their amazement, Kedar Nath actually writes back and tells them that everything Shanti said was true. He did have a wife named Shanti Devi who died only 10 days after giving birth to their son Navneet. So obviously blown away by this information, Kedar decides to actually travel to New Delhi himself to meet Shanti. So on November 12th, 1935, Kedar, his current wife, and his son Navneet arrive in New Delhi to actually meet Shanti and her family. To try and trick Shanti, Kedar actually introduces himself as his older brother Ram. And when Shanti sees Kedar, she is not fooled and immediately tells him that he is Kedar, her husband, and not his brother Ram. And Kedar is obviously floored by this information and decides to quiz Shanti a little bit more. So as Kedar talks to Shanti, he discovers that Shanti knows a lot of things that only Shanti would know. For example, Shanti asked Kedar why he decided to remarry when Shanti specifically made him promise to not remarry on her deathbed. Shanti also describes how she used to take baths on a well on their property, and even describes how she conceived their son Navneet. And this was the tipping point for Kedar. After this, he was fully convinced that Shanti really was the reincarnation of his wife Shanti. Not only that, but Shanti knows his favorite food of pumpkin squash and potatoes, and she is so emotionally overwhelmed at the sight of her son Navneet. When she sees the little boy, she becomes immediately ecstatic and throws her arms around him and runs to get him all of these toys and is just so excited to see him. And the reaction is just so sincere that it moved everybody standing in the room, including Kedar. So eventually, Kedar, Navneet, and his current wife all go back to Mathura, and they are all convinced that Shanti is the real deal and really was Lugdi in a previous life. Soon, news about Shanti begins to spread, and people are understandably mystified. People cannot wrap their heads around how a little girl would know so much information, and her story actually catches the attention of Mahatma Gandhi, and he actually appoints 15 powerful people from the Indian government to actually study Shanti's story and decide if it really was a true case of reincarnation. And this committee of 15 unbiased people actually decide to take Shanti to Mathura and see how she would react. So in late November 1935, the 15 members of the committee and Shanti arrive in Mathura, and Shanti is overjoyed to go back to her old home. As soon as she gets off the train station, she knows exactly where to go. And as she walks through the town, she passes a much older man that she had never seen before. But despite never seeing him before, Shanti somehow recognizes him. She falls to his feet crying and tells the committee that this was Lugdi's brother-in-law. And when they look into this further, it's actually correct. This man who just happened to be walking by really was the brother-in-law of Shanti Devi. And things only get weirder from there. So Shanti leads the way to her old house in Mathura without any directions. She's never been there before, and at this point she is only 8 years old. And she asks no one for help. She just takes these 15 strangers all the way to her house. And these 15 strangers are not allowed to talk to Shanti. They can't ask her guiding questions, they can't influence her answers, they basically can't do anything to jeopardize the experiment. So Shanti is doing this completely by herself. So as soon as Shanti gets to the house, she immediately recognizes it. She runs up to Lugdi's room and immediately looks at all of her old possessions, jewelry, and clothes. And she even goes to look for a spot where she hid money. So eventually Kedar comes in the room and he tells the committee that he found money in the exact spot where Shanti was looking just after Lugdi died. So Shanti's time in Mathura was really amazing. She got to visit Lugdi's parents, which was an incredibly emotional experience for everyone involved. She got to go to the temple where she used to pray and see all of these people that she used to know in her previous life. And at this point, she was becoming sort of a sensation in the town, and crowds of people started to follow her wherever she went. And it was so bad and so paparazzi-like that the committee eventually had to address the crowds just to get them to back off. And the committee tells the crowds that they have verified that Shanti's story is a true case of reincarnation, and she used to be Lugdi Devi in her previous life. And the crowd and the people in the town are obviously astonished, and they're even more astonished when Shanti herself actually addresses the crowd. So Shanti tells the crowd that she loved living in Mathura and living her life as Lugdi Devi, but now she is ready to go back home to Delhi and to live her new life with her new family as Shanti. So it seemed like going to Mathura brought a lot of closure for Shanti, and I think that is one of the coolest parts of this case. The fact that she knew where everything was and could recognize people and could take people directly to her old house is one of the things that really convinces me. So after leaving Mathura, Shanti goes back to New Delhi and settles into her new life and just goes on to be a regular kid. But her story goes way past India and starts an international frenzy. People are obviously interested and they want to study her, and they want to either prove she's a true reincarnation story or disprove her claims. So philosophers, psychologists, religious figures from all over the world come to India to study Shanti Devi in the years following. While some of Shanti's claims don't factually check out, most of what she says does. So a Swedish journalist even tried debunking Shanti's story and traveled all the way to India to interview Shanti. And after interviewing Shanti and all the people involved in her current life and her past life, this journalist decided that Shanti's was the only true case of reincarnation that he'd ever come across. Out of all of the claims that Shanti made, this journalist verified 24 of them as factually correct. And this journalist was so convinced that he even went on to write Shanti's own biography. And if I can find it, I'll put a picture of it here. Now, this is just insane to me. You have to keep in mind that at this time, Shanti is only about 8 or 9 years old. And to talk about all of these adult concepts and these very specific memories and facts is just so crazy to me. And I truly believe that Shanti's case for sure is an example of someone recalling their past life. Whether you believe that Shanti Devi really is a reincarnation of Lugdi Devi, her case is one of the most studied and thoroughly investigated cases of reincarnation in the world. Over 100 researchers and experts interviewed Shanti in her lifetime. I believe Shanti passed away sometime in the 80s, and as she grew up, her memories of Lugdi Devi faded. I think Shanti Devi really goes down in history as being one of the craziest and most authentic experiences of a child recalling a past life in modern history. So that is it for today's video. It is such a crazy story, and I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you think Shanti really was a reincarnation of Lugdi Devi? And if not, what do you think happened? I would love to do some more videos like this in the future. There are so many more cases of reincarnation out there, and I would love to share it with you guys. But that is all for today's video, and I will see you next Tuesday for another video. Bye guys! It is currently 30 degrees in my bedroom and my makeup is melting off.